Many players want to improve their speed on the court. So in this video, we're going to give you some tips and tactics all the way from the beginner level right up to why the pros are so incredibly fast and how you can get that kind of speed into your game. So when we're talking about getting faster on court, we're not only talking about the speed it takes you to get from A to B physically, but we're also talking about your ability to read the game situation and get early into that next position. So we'll break this down first about physically getting faster on the court, and then later we'll talk about anticipation and reading. To get faster on the court, this might sound really basic, but you need to do this split step. A split step is when you bounce on your toes when your opponent is contacting the ball. We recently did a member coaching call with one of our members and we saw their game, and they're actually at quite a high intermediate level, and both them and their partner were not doing the split step. And what happens if you don't do the split step, you go down on your heels and then it's very difficult. You end up being really slow to push off the mark. So that split step, which is only a small bounce on your toes, gets you prepared to move quickly in either direction. This split step does not need to be like a traditional tennis split step. You don't need to give yourself height on that split step because your opponents are not far away and the ball might be coming quickly. So you don't want a really high split step, and you also don't want a really wide split step because that will also make you a little bit more slow to push out in multiple directions. So a tiny bounce is enough. Time it when your opponent contacts and you will be faster to move into position. Now you might find the split step a very basic part of the game and you're thinking, yeah, I definitely do that. But actually when we watch through a lot of our games with our members, we find that they are not doing it and they don't realize, and then we point it out in the video and they go, oh, I had no idea I was doing that. So if you want to know whether you split step or not, really the only way you can do it is take a video of your game and watch that back, because otherwise it's very difficult to know if you're actually implementing that in your game. And really, really importantly, you should do the split step regardless of if you think your opponent is going to hit the ball to you or your partner. This is so common that we see players in the game like this. They split step on the first ball, the ball goes to their partner, and going from a really good ready position on their toes, they drop the racket, they start watching their partner, they go onto their heels, and then the ball goes across to the other side, and then they don't split step, and then they receive the ball and they're caught off balance. If you watch the pros, you will see that even when the ball goes to their partner, they're constantly on their toes. A really good tip is to expect every ball to come to you. Anything from your opponent's end, expect it to come to you. If you expect it, you're going to be that much more alert and therefore that much more ready. The final thing I will say on the split step is if you find yourself at net taking lots of lunges or at the back of the court, you can't make it up fast to the drop shot. Now you can get some really good drop shots, but the court is only 10 meters long. So if your opponent is really drop shotting you a lot and you're struggling, or you're finding it difficult to move in these short spaces, most likely you are not doing that split step, or at least you might be doing the split step and then you go back down onto your heels again, which makes you very slow to push off. So really try and implement this in your game, and a great way to practice this is almost to say it in your head, or very softly whisper it. There's almost split just as your opponents are contact, just to remind yourself, get yourself in a habit, and once you're in the habit of it, it will be natural, and therefore you will naturally be faster on the court. Now the second part that is crucial about being fast on the court is anticipation, and this is something that the pros do incredibly well. I've played with a lot of the pros. I played an exhibition with Ali Galan and I was just blown away by not only his speed, obviously he's an athlete and incredibly fast, but it was the reading of the ball. He was in position so early and defending or hitting the next shot just as I had finished playing the last ball. I would get a vibra sometimes, and I'd play what I thought was a really good vibra, and he'd gone from one position on the court to read it to play that next ball, and it almost seemed like it was, superhuman speed. And yes, he is, and these top girls and guys are very fast, but it's that anticipation, the reading of the ball, that makes them even faster. Anticipation is something that can make you faster in your game, no matter what the level. It's not only the pros. And if we peel this back to a beginner or basic level, this starts really with ball watching and avoiding ball watching, because what we see a lot is players hit a shot, and then they watch where their ball is, or they serve and they're watching the result of the ball before they move into that position. And so anticipation can start really straight off your previous shot, wherever your previous shot is gone. After you finish your shot, you need to reposition yourself. Either you've decided to come to net, like after a serve, or you might need to recover your position back to the correct defensive position, but either way, you're hitting and moving back to that next position. That would be the start. So once you've hit and repositioned or recovered back to your position, you're going to look where your shot has gone and then immediately start reducing the probabilities of a certain shot from your opponent. For example, if I'm serving and I hit a slice serve into the glass, I know that it's highly unlikely they're going to hit, a drop shot or an angled Chiquita towards the fence. So I'm taking the less risky options and I'm covering the middle, for example, because that is a more likely probability that they are going to do it. If I hit a very good serve, you might find that a lob is a difficult option. So I'm also moving forward and cutting out all of those possibilities that your opponent might play. Now, this is very level dependent, because if I'm a beginner and I hit a good slice serve, you could say that my opponent will find it very difficult to hit a good lob. But at pro level, they might be able to hit a fantastic lob, and therefore they have more options. So what you want to do is immediately after your shot, identify where it is in the game situation and try and identify what is possible from your opponents. The other thing you can do in games, which is fantastic, is once you hit a few in a certain direction and you see a certain response from your opponent, you can begin to understand that they are comfortable hitting that response, and different players react differently. If you look at right-sided players, Chingotto versus Cuello, they will give completely different responses to certain shots, and it will be the same in your match. You know that your opponent struggles in a certain area, or they normally hit this shot off a certain ball. You can start to predict that, but you need to be able to watch your opponents in order to do so. And once you start predicting, you can then move into positions. For example, if you hit a ball down the middle and usually they lob with their forehand from the center, you can immediately start preparing yourself for that next overhead. It will mean that you get there a little bit faster. And once you get really good at this, you'll be able to anticipate a whole range of shots from your opponent. The next level on this, and this is more at higher levels, but you can also do this at a beginner level, is this becomes part of your strategy. So you discuss this with your partner. You say, my opponent on this side or this side is hitting a certain response to a certain shot. Let's manage our games so that our strengths are being played against their weaknesses, and therefore you can really capitalize during the points. And if you're not sure how to read the weaknesses of your opponents or how to use your strengths together, this is something we discuss a lot in our tactics course on the padelschool.com, but this is also why we do our coaching calls, and our membership is there for myself and the other coaches to help players identify these things and play better paddle. So I'm going to put on this side a link to that membership, thepadelschool.com, and then down here I'm going to put another video on how you can move faster at net.